tell me, or if you take a test that says I'm an auditory learner, and I put you in a situation that where you're either learning auditorily or you're learning in some other way, you don't perform best in the auditory condition and worse in the other one. So there actually is very little evidence for learning styles. It certainly is true that people have preferences, but what seems to be the best is to present information in multiple modalities. That means you want to present information visually and auditorily. You want to provide hands-on experiences for kids when you can, that kind of stuff. So I just wanted to say something about learning styles. That doesn't mean that providing a kinesthetic experience is not helpful. Certainly it could be. It just means that if you're somebody that self-identifies as a kinesthetic learner, it doesn't mean that you learn only in a kinesthetic kind of instruction and not in any other kind of instruction. So is that clear, just about the evidence for learning styles? There's really no evidence for them?
Yes.
Okay. So to your question about what I think you're getting at is this concept of like the manipulative. So for example, if you have little kids in a math class and they have a bunch of tiles and they can use the tiles to solve math problems, for example, is that what you're talking about a kinesthetic experience?
Yeah.
So go ahead.
In a chemistry class that I took over the summer, for example, like a hands-on activity that we used, like wooden models of atoms, was moved onto a website later, and I wanted to know if like there was like a gradual shift from like kinesthetic learning to visual learning as a result of this like different type of technology.
So I think that's an open question. I don't think we know the answer to that. So certainly it seems to be the case that moving from concrete to abstract is helpful, and you can think about the kinesthetic, the condition where you have the wooden structure of the atom. You can think of that as a very concrete example, right? So you have something physical in front of you, you're looking at it, and then there's something abstracted about the three-dimensional structure and how it's conveyed in the diagram. So in that case, I wouldn't characterize it as moving from kinesthetic to moving to visual. The way that I would characterize it is providing a three-dimensional representation of something probably helps students be able to better understand how that three-dimensional structure is conveyed in a diagram that they're going to see on the PowerPoint, right, or that they're going to see in this simulation. And so I think you're exactly right, but I think that it would be a good idea to provide this sort of three-dimensional model and then move to something a little bit more 2D or abstract. But I'm not sure that there's a lot of data to suggest that at this point.
Okay.
So I think it's a great question.
Okay. So in the spatial thinking, I wanted to know like how it suggested how thinking about something rotating inside of your head, how these types of exercises could be possibly implemented into higher level classes.
Yeah. So so I think there's a couple of ways that you could do it. One is that you could just, and this is the way that has been done previously. So the way that this has been done previously is they just say, hey, we're going to give you a bunch of examples or a bunch of practice at rotating things in your head. And those things are completely unrelated to scientific content, right? So if you're going to practice rotating three-dimensional figures, Tetris figures in your head, and doing that is likely going to give you practice and improve your performance in, say, for example, chemistry. But the other way that you could do that is you could give kids practice rotating three-dimensional molecules, or looking at whether something is a stereoisomer, so whether it's a kind of there's a mirror reflection going on. And so I think that the way that you could do that is twofold. One is you could just provide practice on the skill, which is independent of the scientific content, and then the second way is to provide practice doing it with content that's meaningful for the particular discipline. So, for example, with chemistry molecules.
Yeah, that makes sense. So like how it would be used is like instead of just like envisioning something rotating in your head, you can envision like different models or like in your head. So is that what you're?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So I think all of the questions that you're asking are in the space where we don't really know the answer to these questions, but they're really, really important questions. So I think for your paper, you're going to say, there's a lot that's known. For example, what's known is that there's this link between spatial thinking, skill, and STEM performance. But we don't know a lot about how to put activities in the classroom that build kids' skills at doing that.
Yeah. According to one of my sources, learning style is concept and evidence. Adapting to learning styles does not produce worthwhile differences in education. Could there perhaps be a relationship between learning styles such as kinesthetic and the aforementioned spatial thinking?
I don't know. I mean, I definitely think, I don't believe that there are these learning styles. I believe that there are preferences. And so I think what you're asking is it possible that providing these hands-on kinesthetic experiences where kids are actually rotating and seeing chemistry molecules, rotating structures of atoms, or where they're seeing a physical representation of, say, for example, if you're trying to understand phases of the moon, a good way to do that is to create a model of the solar system that basically shows the sun, the earth, and the moon. And you can understand, and you can shine a flashlight and see just how what part of the moon is lit up at different times in the month as a function of where the sun and the earth sit and how light is going to be projected. So in that case, yes, providing a kinesthetic or a hands-on experience where students can actually see how light is reflected and what part of the moon will be lit up, I think that's a wonderful idea. I'm not going to say that the kinesthetic learning is going to, be the end-all be-all, because I think you need lots more. But I do think for these spatial components, where space is so much three-dimensional, that it's a good idea to have as much three-dimensional hands-on experience as you can.
Yeah. One of my other sources suggests the occurrence of a state called the flow state, in which the amount of challenge and the intellectual ability is balanced, and it results in increased productivity and a clear state of mind while working on the task. It sometimes happens when you're working on something and then you're just so focused on it, and the time passes by and you're not really struggling, but you're managing to just go through it. And so my question was, how could teaching methods be adapted to encourage the occurrence of the flow state?
So I don't know anything about the flow state. I'm not sure if I'm not sure how to define it, or if being in this state is actually linked to any kind of learning outcomes. So I'm not really in a position to say how teachers can best promote that. I think there is something that people have wondered about for a long time, which is sort of this idea of the aha moment. So you might have been thinking about a problem for a long time, and then you go away from it, and then while you're walking the dog or on a run, you're like, I got the solution. And so I'm not sure if that's what you mean by flow state. I think I'm not even sure what the research is on that standpoint, but I don't know if I don't know if I could really say much about the flow state.
Earlier you said that what happens with the different learning styles is just basically preference, and there are some interesting things that happen sometimes, as when I'm in school. Sometimes when a teacher describes something in a certain way, if a friend explains it to me in a different way, drawing a picture or something, it's sometimes easier for me to understand. So would these preferences be linked to increased productivity?
So I don't know of any data on that, but I certainly understand what you're talking about. I think what you're saying is, so correct me if I understand the situation. So the teacher might explain something one way that doesn't use a picture, or the teacher also uses a picture, but the friend draws it differently. Which one is it? Is it the teacher never used the picture?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, people, famously Einstein said that he thought in pictures, not words. And so I think despite person is a visual thinker only and they can't learn in other contexts, it doesn't mean you don't have a preference, and it doesn't mean that there's not certain content for which visual presentation seem to be best. And I say that because if you think about if you're trying to learn poetry or you're trying to understand literature, obviously, like, that information lends itself to verbal instruction. But if you're trying to understand the three-dimensional structure of a molecule, or if you're trying to understand, something about, dodecahedron, it's very hard to communicate that information without pictures, without drawing, without some sort of visual representation. And so I think visual representations are really important, and they aid learning, particularly for visual domains. You understand what I mean by that?
Yes. So if a student has like a preference to learning in a certain way, could that possibly result in like a greater understanding, like from the teacher in the very beginning, if it matches what they're used to or what their preference is?
So, I think people, so part of the challenge with visual presentations of stuff is sometimes you got to learn how to understand them. So even if you were talking about you had that three-dimensional molecule, and then at some point it goes onto an online thing, right, or like a PowerPoint or some online thing. Well, you have to be able to, when you're looking at that diagram when it's on a computer screen, you as the observer have to be able to see the three-dimensionality in a way that it's not conveyed there, right? Yeah. So you sort of have to learn how to interpret those kinds of diagrams. Right, so you said you took a chemistry class, so chemistry has like all kinds of weird conventions. They have a Fisher or a dash wedge diagram for conveying one thing. They have a Newman projection for conveying another. So chemistry has a series of ways of representing three-dimensional structure in two-dimensional diagrams. But those are hard to read. So you might have naturally found yourself able to read those, but there are plenty of kids that don't. Just like likely in your class, sometimes your teacher might spend time explaining how to read a graph, and you think like, why would you spend time explaining that? Like, I can obviously see the x-axis says this, but there's a lot of people that don't understand how these, how visual representations work. And so I think sometimes part of the learning is learning how to understand those kinds of representations.
Yes. So given that like learning styles is kind of a myth, then there's still like relatively widespread acceptance in the education system.
I know.
So I wanted to know why this myth has been like so persistent in being put into education systems, even though they have been rarely incorporated into lessons, but they have been to like try to cater to specific learning styles.
Yeah, I think it's a great question, and I think it's a question that a lot of scientists and neuroscientists have struggled with. So I think one reason is because overwhelmingly these preferences are very strong. So you probably have a preference. You say, well, I really like to look at things visually. I need a drawing. I need a diagram. I need something to understand it. And somebody else says, oh, God, I don't understand how to read graphs. Like, I would just rather see it written out in a paragraph. So I think one reason that it's been pervasive is because these preferences feel very strong to people. And when you have this intuitive feeling, you're like, oh, that has to be right? That feels so real to me. So I think that's one thing. I think the other possible reason is that it provides a very easy solution in a way, which is just, hey, for all the people that say they're visual learners, give them a bunch of visual stuff and they're going to learn best. And for all the people who say they're auditory learners, give them a bunch of auditory stuff and they'll learn best. So it provides a very easy thing for people to tell teachers to do. Now, whether that's easy to actually do in their classroom is completely different. But I think the reason is it's like, it kind of seems almost in a way like a magic bullet, like just do this and your kids will learn better. Sort of like the 10% thing, you know? These things just feel like, oh, if that were true, then maybe we could really easily make a change in education. So that's my sense about why it's probably prevalent. I think the other reason that it's prevalent is that teacher training programs still tell people that's true. So there's been a failure for scientists to this is not true, and for that information to get into the hands of people who train teachers.
Yes, I agree with that statement. That a lot of times that it's just hard to communicate the different informations, the different findings, like in medicine and stuff, to the different places that need to get it. Like
Yeah.
One of my other questions was about how, since sometimes preferences come from like a lot of practice, would a experiment that is driven by supplying it to preschoolers that haven't had much practice with different types of information presentation could possibly be more accurate than those with adults who already have their preferences built up?
So your question is, you're going to set up a scenario where you have a bunch of preschoolers, and you're trying to get them to learn something, say what a triangle is, for example, right? You're trying to get them to learn that a triangle has 3 sides and 3 angles. And so your question is, if you give them instruction with a picture, you give them instruction verbal only, whether that would show a difference. And the argument would be those kids haven't yet developed a preference, but they might be learning something better in one condition or another. Is that your question?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's a great idea. I don't know if it has been done. I think the only challenge that you'll have there is this idea that I brought up earlier, which is that I think some domains naturally lend themselves better to visualization. And I think learning of shape might be one of them, because you could show them lots of examples of different kinds of triangles, right? An isosceles triangle, a scalene triangle, an equilateral, and you could say what's similar across all of these. And by seeing them visually, the kind of similarities and differences are going to pop out. And so I think it's such an interesting question, because you're right, they don't have preferences. I just think it's going to be hard to pick domains for kids that are both going to be well taught in a visual and auditory domain, or visual and verbal domain. But I don't see why there's any reason why you can't propose it.
So a lot of the times, before you proposed that the use of shapes and different tasks as learning tasks like different shapes, new shapes and stuff. I wondered what the difference would be if it would be more successful if an experiment carried out used a variety of different fields that have different domains that are more effective for each different type, and you could collect data for each different type of information that you're giving. So
I think that would make sense.
So if you put if you had carried out an experiment that had more domains in which, for example, like English, teaching by sound is like a lot more prevalent than just by like showing them the letters. When you learn the alphabet, you always like say like A, B, C, D, learn the sounds of each of the letters, and I think that would be a lot different than like shapes. So
yeah, I agree, but for this exact reason that I brought up, which is that for shapes, they're inherently visual. It's like it's so much. You spend so many words describing the difference between two triangles. Whereas if you could just put it in front of a sighted person who could see it or touch them, in the case of somebody who's not sighted, they just immediately pop out. And so, but you're right, for language, if you're teaching somebody, for example, a new a language, so a second language learner, there's lots of distinction between sounds and languages that are really hard to catch. And so you can't explain those in any other way than to have somebody hear it. So while you could put so there's a way of describing. It's called phonemes. There's a phonemic presentation. There's a way of describing what the breakup of a word is supposed to sound like. So you could put that on the board to show how that works, but it's not going to be near as effective as just having somebody to listen to it. So there are content areas for which verbal or auditory instruction is really the only way. So I think that's going to be the challenge of any experiment, is you'd have to find a domain for which you could really say that, okay, this is really well suited to visual presentation, and this is really well suited to auditory instruction.
Yes, that makes sense. I think that's the end of my questions.
Okay, so what are you doing with this?
I have a project for a class called Independent Research, and I'm going to carry out like a data collection experiment at my school.
Okay.
And then at the end of the year, we have to draft a big research paper utilizing a lot of different sources and expert opinions.
So what experiment are you doing?
So I'm not sure if I can get a hold of preschoolers because they haven't built up their preferences, but I'm going to like create like a Google form, see if I can get fellow students to. I'll like put a Google form and have like information presented in one way, and then see if it's more effective for another way.
Okay, and how are you going to present? So what's going to be your topical area?
I wanted to find out whether if there was a specific combination of teaching methods, or not learning styles, but like teaching methods where it's presented like a PowerPoint or a video, where it's the best combination for overall for different subjects.
Okay, and how are you going to, what kind of information are you going to present for them?
I would create data. I think in STEM fields it would be very useful, but I could also create an alternative slide with different foreign language, so that they would be able to utilize different domains in which the knowledge is based in.
Okay, and so are you going to, so is the idea that you're going to give people this survey to identify, to tell what their kind of preference is, and then you're going to take half the people who say visual and put them in a visual learning condition, and half the people that say visual and put them in an auditory learning condition, and vice versa for auditory learners?
Yes.
Yeah, so that would be exactly what you would need. So despite the fact that that sounds like that you came up with that experiment, and that sounds like that would be a really great experiment to do, there has been very little experiments that have established the proper controls that you would need to show that, and that's exactly what you would need. You'd need people who say, I'm a visual learner, and put them in a visual and auditory condition. And so what you would need to find to show that preference really makes a difference is you'd need them to learn best in the visual condition and worse in the auditory condition.
So I think what I'll be trying to do is to find general trends and then differences between the two different groups for each type of teaching method.
Okay.
So I'll try to find if there is a correlation or not.
Okay. Well, good luck. I'm sorry that it's taken me so long to be able to get in touch with you, but if you have any questions as you go through, feel free to reach out.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Have a good day.
You too.
Bye.
Bye. Mm-hmm.